Welcome back to 843 TV, where communities come to speak. We're at Holy Trinity School. We're joined by Justin Klazinga, a teacher here, John Hermisman, who's also a teacher, and Sarah Lawrence, who's a student here. And we're going to start talking about their Latin program here, which is awesome that you all do this. You've been studying Latin for 6 years, Sarah, which is amazing since the school started. And Mr. Klazinga, I am going to ask you first, why does Holy Trinity teach Latin?
Well, a very common answer to that question is, it's practical. It'll get you through middle school. You'll learn a lot of terms. Some people say it'll make other languages way easier in the future if you take other Romantic languages like French or Spanish and such things. But actually, I always just give the answer that so all of life isn't about how you can make money in the rest of your life. It's not about your career entirely. That there are other parts of your life that oftentimes school neglects to really inform and to build up. And so what I enjoy about the Latin program is that it unlocks something that students wouldn't normally have, which is something to do in their leisure time. The goal of our Latin program is to get people reading Latin like they read English, so you can read the classics in their original languages, something that perhaps for most of these students isn't going to change their careers, isn't going to really get them, they're not going to put it on a resume perhaps, but it'll be something that will change their lives in their leisure and the time that they spend on their own.
How are they able to apply that? Is there a club or something?
Yeah,
How are you seeing it in action?
Personally, we're kind of nerds, we Latin teachers, so many of my friends and I will send emails to each other in Latin just for the fun of it, really. And if you're going to enjoy literature, the best way to enjoy literature is to enjoy it in the original language. And so much of our heritage in Western civilization is Latin literature. Wonderful. That it's unlocked to you if you've had the experience that you have at Holy Trinity.
Yeah, and keeping it alive.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And Mr. Hermisman, I'm going to ask you, what's the scope and sequence of the way Latin is taught here?
Yeah, so here at Holy Trinity, students begin learning Latin all the way beginning in second grade. So in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, they're learning vocabulary, they're learning noun declensions and verb conjugations just by memory through chants, which if you go into a class, they will just get up and chant away, and they have a great time with this really interesting knowledge that they have. So it's a lot of just memorizing some of the core pieces of grammar. As they move into the 5th, 6th grade, 7th grade, they're beginning to gain a deeper understanding of the workings of the language and begin to apply it in translation, where we're reading from our grammar textbook various sentences to translate having to do with ancient stories of the ancient Romans, things like that. As they move into 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, the high school years, in Mr. Klazinga's class, for example, they're reading the real original classics
in classic language,
in the actual language that they were written in. So the goal is to begin with just vocab memorization and end with reading Virgil's Aeneid in the original language.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so Sarah, as a student, you've been studying Latin for 6 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what grade are you in now?
10th grade.
And how has that impacted you? Well, first, when you found out, kids find out, I'm going to be taking PE or I'm taking Spanish. When you found out you were going to be taking Latin, how did that land on you?
It was a very foreign concept at first. What is Latin? I've not really heard that much about it. I'd never taken a language before. But as we started to dive into it, it was just fun and new and fresh, which is weird considering it's such an old language. Right. But it was so different, and as we were learning about the Romans, it brought us in contact with them a bit more. It was like a window into a different culture.
And how has that changed your life?
It's been really fun just having something constant throughout this classical experience, because the one thing that we've been learning, it's like math. We've been learning it and you build on it each year, and it's something you come back to. So Latin, it's been a journey of experiences. We started with the nouns and the declensions and all of that. Then we've been slowly building on it. We started reading Latin plays last year in Mr. Klazinga's class. And then this year we started reading the Aeneid, which it seemed so crazy to me that
Daunting,
we were
right?
finally reading this, and now we're doing it, and it's fun. And we did a week where we spoke in Latin. Which
Do you
was
have a
fun.
favorite phrase?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah.
In unva puniabimus igitor, therefore we'll fight in the shade. It's a quote from Leonidas, I believe.
I love it. I love it. And so what are you all hoping that your students at the end of the day are going to take from this, Mr. Klasinga?
Well, I'm just floored by what she's taken from this. So that's what I'm hoping for. But maybe she can give that speech to some of our classes. But I really hope that they come away from this with the ability to read Latin and maybe the seed planted in the back of their minds that this is something that they can take enjoyment in. Right now, as with a lot of the parts of the curriculum, they're forced to do it. They're not necessarily taking all the enjoyment that maybe Sarah is from it, but what I hope is that maybe the seed will grow into something that 10 years down the line, they'll remember that they've taken Latin and have a desire to read some of the classics in their languages and really use their leisure time that way.
Sure.
And
Sort
fall
of
back on that.
What a trainer would say, you'll hate me now, but thank
Right,
me later.
yeah, yeah.
Right? What's your favorite part of teaching Latin, Mr. Hermesman?
I think a lot of it was, again, kind of encapsulated in Sarah's answer. Seeing the enjoyment that the students have in confronting something that's really challenging, but then really getting it. And seeing the way that over the years, like she said, comparing it to math, your ability to do it grows, and the mental discipline it requires really develops, and ultimately they become quite competent communicators in Latin, and that carries over into English. And I love to see that in my students' progress.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations, and I'm so looking forward to keeping up with what you're doing in your classrooms. We'll be right back with more 843 TV.